Okay, should be started now.
Okay, I see it recording, so thank you.
Did anyone have any issues in joining the meeting? Or link worked okay for everyone?
It worked fine for me, Eric.
Okay. 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 And Supervisor Sandy just let me know that he is attempting to get in. So I just resent him the Zoom link, so hopefully he'll be joining us in just a moment.
Eric, what about Mr. Landsberg? Have you heard from him?
I have not.
I'm not sure if you want to resend the link to him as well.
We do have Councilmember Vega here today, though.
Good afternoon, Myra Vega, I'm here.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mindy. So I'm not sure if we should try and get started while Supervisor Sandy is going, if we have a quorum or not.
I mean, we could start a discussion and without a quorum. And when he arrives, is that necessary to recognize the presence of a quorum? If that's the case, we could stop and approve the agenda and in effect start the meeting officially at that point. But I'm open to whatever my colleagues prefer. This is Councilman Carson, by the way.
Okay,
So this is Phil Pogletich. So I may have missed it. Is Council Member Vega not standing in for Rich Landsberg today? Or am I, let's see, because otherwise
I
we would
believe
have
she
a quorum.
is.
We have a quorum then, right? I think we got 3 of the 4.
Yes,
Well, then we should proceed as usual then.
There we go.
and just want to clarify really quickly, Councilmember Vega, is that the case? You are standing in for Councilmember Landsberg?
Oh, well, so it's my understanding that I'm the voting member here and Councilmember Landsberg is the alternate.
Okay,
Yeah, we can confirm that after the meeting. Sounds like either way, you'll be the voting member today and we have a quorum, so we can proceed. We just may need to adjust our little asterisks on the agenda here.
yes,
Yep.
we can certainly do that.
Sounds good.
I think then it would go over to Vice Chair Cohen to begin the meeting then, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay. Then we'll call the meeting to order at 2:09 PM and we'll do a roll call, please.
Member Carson,
Carson present.
Member Cowan,
Here,
Member Vega,
Vega present.
and Member Sandy. All right, he's absent at this time, so we have quorum. We have 3 out of 4.
okay, great. I do not have the agenda in front of me, so I'm gonna rely upon Eric to point us in the right direction here.
Yes, and Julie, if we could please share the agenda, that would be fantastic on the screen.
Just give me just 1 second. I'll get it up. Hold on.
Thank you.
And that's working.
Yep, got it up now. So first we'll consider approval of the agenda. Is there any changes to the agenda?
In that case, this is Carson. I'm happy to move approval of the agenda.
Okay. We have a motion by Carson. Do we have a second?
Second by Councilmember Vega.
And a second by Vega. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Thank you. Yes. Member Carson,
Carson, aye.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Vega,
Aye.
and Member Sandy is absent. So that passes 3 to 1.
Okay, thank you. Next, item 3 is consider approval of the February 25th meeting minutes. Would someone like to make a motion for approval of the minutes?
I reviewed the minutes, saw no issues, so I move approval. This again is Carson.
Okay. Motion by Carson, second.
Vega was second.
Okay. Vega for the second and roll call vote, please.
Member Carson,
Carson, aye.
Member Cowan,
Aye.
Member Vega,
Aye.
and Member Sandy is absent. So motion passes 3 to 1.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Yodel Animal Services Planning Agency on subjects related to this JPA and not otherwise on the agenda. You will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any hands up or any written comments for public comment?
I show Lisa Gaines has her hand raised.
Okay, Lisa, welcome.
She's going to have to unmute herself, I think. I don't have the ability to unmute her.
Okay.
Am I now unmuted?
You are.
Yes.
So I'm just here to represent the nonprofit that's working as a liaison between the county and the cities. And I just wanted to make sure that you are all here if you have any questions. And also let you know that we do have an expert at some point that we had talked about on one of our last meetings, bringing in an expert to talk to us. So one of the VPs from San Francisco SPCA is more than happy to do a presentation at some point if you'd like her. And that's all I wanted to let you guys know.
Okay, great. That'd be a real good thing to get on a future agenda here for sure. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right. Eric, can we go back to the agenda?
Yes, I'll get it back up. Hold on.
Okay, there we go. All right, we're going to receive an update on the American Rescue Plan eligibility. And I think, Eric, you're going to fill us in on this?
Yes, that is correct. So can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
We can.
Fantastic. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. Eric Will, Management Analyst with Yolo County Administrator's Office. Just a quick note, I believe that the function for video has not been allowed for this meeting. So I apologize that we can't see all of each other's wonderful and beautiful faces, but I think we'll be able to push through, I think, okay from here on out. And so just a very quick update on ARP funding for the potential of an animal shelter. Just wanted to note a few things for this group, that the county staff have been going through a community workshop process over the last several weeks, where we have been eliciting feedback from the community in terms of what folks are interested in term for ARP or the American Rescue Plan. And what I wanted to just share with this group quickly is that there are a lot of proposals, over 160 of them, and ARP is a very specific process in terms of what is eligible for use for ARP. So ARP funds are meant to be in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as a response to the public health emergency associated with COVID-19, and should also address the negative impacts of COVID-19. There are certain types of infrastructure that are available to be funded through ARP funding, such as water, sewer, or broadband uses, but in general infrastructure is not eligible as part of ARP. And the board has also indicated specific ways that they would like ARP funds to be used. That should be one-time in nature, transformational, connected to the county strategic plan, connected to COVID-19, needs-based and informed by data, to maximize opportunity and to avoid duplication. And so all of this to be said for this update is that it is uncertain whether or not an animal shelter would actually be eligible for ARP funds at this time. And staff wanted to let this group know that as staff continues to return to the board, there will be additional information on which projects would be or would not be eligible for ARP funding. Staff will be returning to the board on July 27th and August 31st with additional information on the community workshops that have been held over the past 2 weeks. So just wanted to give that quick update to this group, just because I know that as there have been prior discussions about an animal shelter, and I believe there's been at least 1 or 2 proposals related to an animal shelter, just wanted to give a quick update on the eligibility of ARP funding and whether or not that would be eligible moving forward. And there will be more information on that coming soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Eric?
I do. This is Carson.
Go ahead.
Sure. My first question is this. So I did read the scoring sheet, if you will, that the county produced, you know, the long list of proposals, and some clearly have a better chance of being funded than others. And we're going through the same process at the city of Davis. So we understand that, and we certainly appreciate your criteria, which we have very similar criteria. One thing I spent some time when the regulations first came out, rolling through them. And there is a category that is referenced in your own scoring sheet that you can seek funds that to offset your, in effect, general fund revenue losses. And that whatever such losses that you can score, you have the choice, you know, it's an option, not a requirement, but you have the choice of claiming funds based on that revenue loss and of using them to support governmental services. And the regulatory language on what constitutes a governmental service seems to be very, very broad. And it specifically allows types of infrastructure other than the specific infrastructure types that you can claim money for. So my question is, has the county figured out what its claimable revenue loss is that qualifies under the American Rescue Plan? And is that an avenue that you would consider if you aren't going to make such a claim?
So I will answer to the best of my ability, but I do not believe that that has been determined at this time. We do have our interim county administrator, Daniel Kim, on the line as well, if he would like to speak to this.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Councilman. We are in the process of looking into this. We want to see what monies we can retrieve as a result of the ARP funds. And so that is an ongoing kind of review. That said, my understanding is that the county is probably in a less of a position to draw down funds for that purpose than many of the cities. Many of the cities have seen a reduction in revenue as a result of, let's say, hotel occupancy tax or traffic meters and the like. So the cities may have more of an opportunity there. My understanding is any revenue that we are able to, let's say, supplant in this case, would not be able to be anywhere near enough to cover the cost of a new animal shelter.
Great. Thank you for that information. The other question I have relates to the state budget. And there is, of course, there were multiple, and Daniel knows this story very, very well. There were multiple bills and trailer bills. In my review of the trailer bills that were passed to date, there is a AB 164 that was sent to the governor that provided $45 million for an animal shelter program, grant program that UC Davis Correct School would operate. And there is trailer bill language, and I'm preaching in the choir with Daniel, but trailer bill language is a reference to statutory language necessary to implement the budget. There's trailer bill language on this subject in a higher education bill, AB 132, that also passed. And of course, none of those monies are earmarked for Yolo County or any other specific county. But my question is this an alternative to American Rescue Plan funding that we could pursue with, you know, one of our, of course, very important local partners?
Eric, if you don't mind, I'll try to take this question. Thank you, Councilman Carson. We did hear rumors that there may be funding available for UCD for this purpose. So we're trying to track that down with our government relations staff. But that may be an opportunity. Another opportunity I might add is in the event that President Biden does get the infrastructure bill passed, we're going to wait and see if the infrastructure bill might be an allowable, may have funds available for this purpose as well.
All right, great. Is there any other questions or comments for staff? Is there any public comment on this item?
I don't see any hands raised. Lisa's hand is still up, but I'm not able to take it down. So I'm assuming she doesn't have any further comment. Oh, she just took it down. Okay. No, I don't. We have no further comments.
Okay. Can we go back to the agenda, Julie? Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to receive an update on Animal Services Planning Agency work plan and try to provide a little feedback. Will, I think you're taking this as well.
That is correct. Thank you. And Julie, if we could quickly pull up the presentation. Thank you so much. Perfect. Thank you. So hello, everyone. Once again, my name is Eric Will. I am a management analyst with Yolo County Administrator's Office. So today, I know it has been a little while since this group has convened. And so staff really just wanted to do a quick, brief update on where the JPA has been over the last several months and then where we look to be going. I know that part of the process in which we have been going back and forth internally with staff is really making sure that we are internally aligned and making sure that what gets presented to this group is in alignment of all amongst county staff. And so we really want to make sure we're together as we move forward in this process. And so in lieu with that, today I will be presenting a few slides, and then our Director of Animal Services, Stephanie Amata, will also be presenting a few slides as well. And so for the first part of this presentation, it's really just a quick update on the process of where we are, just maybe a quick reminder since we haven't had a meeting in quite some time. And then we'll jump into some more of an operational discussion of some of the challenges that have been overseen by Stephanie's group throughout COVID-19 and just with some of the general changes that have been occurring in animal services. And so if we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So as I mentioned, today's presentation will include a process update. So this will harken back to the strategic plan process that we began at the end of last year and we're working toward in the beginning of 2021 as well. And then, as I mentioned, we'll discuss some current challenges in animal services. And then finally, just a quick note on some next steps for this group moving forward. Next slide, please. Thank you. So thus far, this JPA has met to discuss the development of a strategic plan. The group has decided on a mission statement, values, and vision, which will eventually help us to build out more specific outcomes, strategies, and metrics as we move forward. The document helping the JPA moving forward with strategies such as this strategic plan is the JPA work plan, as seen in the middle of this slide. So this work plan, which was previously presented, included really just some high-level dates of what we're looking to accomplish with this JPA. So the accomplishment of moving a strategic plan forward, starting to look toward an operational plan, and then also looking at doing check-ins with city councils. However, the main purpose for today's presentation is for animal services to provide an update on their ever-changing operations during COVID-19 and the landscape around animal service that continues to change, requiring new adaptation of staff. And so really what we wanted to do today was to offer an opportunity for the Director of Animal Services, Stephanie Amata, to come forth to this JPA, give an update to this group before we jump back into this process, because we felt like we really needed to get the full picture of what's been going on in the county. And so I know that there was a presentation back several months where Stephanie presented to this group and provided some additional information on, what is it that animal services does, what are the things that are maybe known by the public and maybe what is not really known by the public, and then really what is kind of extent of services overall for this process. And so we felt it was important to hold this presentation and discussion ahead of moving forward with this strategic plan. So before we develop our specific strategies, outcomes, and metrics, making sure that we're really in a parallel process with animal services. So if we could go to the next slide, please, I'll hand it over to Stephanie at this time.
Okay, hi, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, hi, so I am Stephanie Amato, I'm the Director of Animal Services, and I appreciate this opportunity to give you an update on everything that we have been overcoming and the successes and how things are moving forward as we are entering the next stage of the pandemic. So we can go to the next slide, please. We'll start off with the so operational fiscal staffing. So our operations and services have really changed since the 2013 study was completed. And that is actually when I began my career here at the Sheriff's Department Animal Services as an officer. And during that time, I know people have access to all of that data, but since then we have increased, for those of you who don't know, our live release rate. And that is huge for an open enrollment, open admission, municipal shelter. And what that means is that we have relied on volunteers, and we also have relied on changing the methods of how we are doing operations here. So especially with our kittens. Our kitten foster program now is extremely robust and has only gotten stronger through these last couple years. And the other thing that we did is we work closely. So we do have our contract with the current shelter medicine program, and they made their recommendations, and that is how the housing units for the cats really were improved, recommendations for dogs, and we have just increased and adapted to their recommendations since that time. And right now we are, I am in really close contact with Kate Hurley, and that is something that working with her and we just finished their boot camp as a group here again, just to really just get in alignment with what animal sheltering is looking like, what the needs are going to be. And so I'll move forward onto that in just a minute. And I'm happy to provide, that was an afterthought there, that I can provide Kate Hurley's information. She has offered that to be handed out so we can get some more information about what that potential grant money is going to look like for them. I know they're working hard on that. During COVID-19, so we completely changed how we were doing our services. We did stay open in a sense of the gates may have closed, but we were still doing business. We still, unlike most shelters, we did take in strays. We continued to take in sick and injured, and we continued with our adoptions. We actually really rekindled our dog foster program during that time, and it allowed us to match foster families that actually turned into forever homes. And that was something that I did with volunteers, and we did a lot of things online. We started to change our process to online documents. We are doing appointments, and it has just continued to allow us to continue to provide those services, even though things looked a little different here. We're providing more hours of operation actually here at the shelter. We used to have our shelter only open partial hours on Mondays and closed for lunch. And now we are open 8 to 5. Our gates officially opened the second week of July. So we are still working on that. We are letting people come in the front office. And we are limiting how many people can come to do kittens. Our dog adoptions are still by appointment only. People can look online and make an appointment. And we have a staff member who, she's one of my extra help employees, and she has developed this system of matching families with the pets that we have available. And That has been huge for us as far as the appointments, because we are finding it is less stressful for the animals here and for the very limited staff that I have had, which we are just starting to get more volunteers back. But we were really limited during the pandemic, and especially in the early stages. And we also reduced our surgical numbers as well. So we were outsourcing to local veterinarians to perform spay neuters. When UC Davis, they did not perform any surgeries here on site for over a month. And we still were, we are required to only adopt out those animals that have been altered. So we had to adopt some different policies with that, but getting those animals altered and adopted out. The other thing that, so we'll move on to, I mean, we've kept with the appointments, and that also is what other shelters have adopted as well. So it seems to work. It is something that people are getting used to, and trying to do a lot more of our licensing online as well. So we rely on the social media and Nextdoor, Facebook, and those kind of things. And we just really need to continue to show people that you can do a lot more online than actually physically coming to the shelter. Our operations, the next piece here is that they're not accounted for in our animal services contract. So like Eric mentioned, that I've presented on what we really do here. And that's something that I really take the opportunity to tell anyone, that we are so much more than dogs and cats here. And the services is so much more than just the shelter. We are a lot more than just the infrastructure, and everything that we do provide for Yolo County. A lot of that is not reflected in our individual city contracts. We handle a majority of our calls will revolve around wildlife. And that is something that most people don't know. And in the contract, we really are only supposed to deal with sick or injured. We pick up deceased animals, and I know someone has to do it. It's not something that we are contracted doing. So it does take time, and it's something that our officers and our kennel staff here, when things come in over the counter, it's things that we do process, but there are just some things that should be addressed. And that's something that I've been working on with our department finance manager about as well, just shedding the light on the fact that there are a lot of services that we are providing that are not reflected in the contracts. And that is something that we would like to continue to do, those services, but as we get down to the next couple topics here, it makes it really hard when staffing is limited. So going with the many facilities in need of updating now. So as of right now, our building is old, and I understand that. And what I'm trying to do, and what I've tried over this past year to do, is to just look at what are our problems. Everyone says our building is old, our pipes are old. Okay, well, I also say there's Victorians that people redo. They don't tear them down, they restore them. So what do I need to do to make the shelter and animal services make us work more smoothly? So, if I can fix the slow drains, then that's less time that my kennel officer is dealing with that, when she could be doing behavior evaluations and working with rescues to get more animals out. All the things that we are working on with our broken gutters, our leaking roof, our drains that overflow, those are all things that really should be fixed and need to be fixed, so we can move forward and provide all those services to the community. The more time that is taken away with doing that, the less animals that we are able to move out of the shelter quicker. For example, we have brand new swamp coolers that it has taken the 8 years that I've been here to get those installed. There has been a period of time when we do not have any cooling besides large industrial fans, which I purchased to move air in the dog kennels. And when it's 113 outside, you can imagine what it's like inside. Our pressure washer system is also way past due, and I am happy that it is actually being replaced next week. So that project will be started, and that was money that was budgeted so we can make this happen. So that is actually going to be a lot more of an efficient system that we are using in the kennel. The other thing that we really would like to work on is is our outdoor yards. You know, what does the public see? And I know, you know, a lot of people think of the animal shelter as a depressing place, but it wouldn't be that hard to update those outdoor yards. You know, we just actually received, we had a donation and some grant money that came from the nonprofit Friends of YCAS. And we have shade structures out there, permanent shade structures. So they are metal, and they provide shade in our outdoor runs, which we've never had. We've had tarps that blow to one side or another. It looks a lot better. So updating those outdoor yards would be not only aesthetically pleasing, but it also would be better for the animals, and we could clean it better as well. Our last piece here is the staffing challenges, which I understand everyone is having staffing problems. And that is something that I hear on all my weekly calls with different directors and shelter managers. And what it really comes down to as well, I know in our own department, is that we cannot compete with other agencies with how much they are being paid. And like right now, I lost another one of my kennel staff because she's going to Sacramento County where they pay more. We lost a front office to go to Sac County Records. That is something that just we need to address, and it needs to be addressed. That just compared to other areas, we fall very short, and it is not an easy job. We're asking people to do some of the hardest jobs and we have chosen that. I understand that this is the path that we have chosen, but as far as consistency and retention here at the shelter, which is what you need to provide quality care for the animals, that's something that does need to be addressed. If I can, next slide, please. Okay, so here, talking about our interim solutions. So we really need to address what is going on here and now. And what I say to my team here is the days of duct tape are over. Okay, I'm not saying I'm going out and buying all these brand new shiny things, but I'm buying things that help them to do their job. And those are those little things. It just new snare poles, new things, and I don't mean that but just new equipment, new safety equipment. That's the biggest thing too, is that we really need to, we're cutting costs where, you know, it really shouldn't be done. And an animal resource center, so a brand new shelter, I would love that. I'm not, you know, please don't get it wrong that I don't want to see us have this amazing community resource center where people can come and we can do animal training. But right now, you know, really what is important is updating what we have here so we can continue to provide the high level of services that we do. This is not sustainable. And we are also, like I said, wasting resources and time fixing infrastructure, fixing things that really it's taking away from what we do here and what we really need to be doing in the communities. And due to the changes in the service needs, animal sheltering is turning from, you know, large facilities that house animals for a long time and they work on behavior modification while they're in the shelter. Because of the pandemic, we have shifted to community-centric programs. What we really need here, especially in Yolo County, is low-cost vet services, low-cost spay-neuter. We can only do a limited amount here at the shelter, and we work with our local rescues and the local nonprofits, and that is something that we need more community involvement in how to keep animals out of the shelter. So an animal shelter should just be a place where the animals come and go to their next stop. It shouldn't be a place where they're staying here for months and months. And right now, across the board, it is our highest population time and our slowest adoption rates. But that is not just unique to Yolo County. So we're in the middle of kitten season, and because we pretty much took last year off, it is explosive. It's pretty explosive right now. So, but what really needs to happen is targeting those community members who need services, so they don't have to, you know, surrender their animals to us because they cannot afford basic veterinary care. And then what happens with us is we provide services, and then we put the burden on rescues, who then find another home. the need is not for another home in most of these situations. The need is for basic care. So that is where the animal sheltering, leaders, when I sit on these committees, and what we're talking about is how do we get more community involvement, and how do we get those resources to the community members. What I would like to see Yolo County Animal Services be is we should be the resource hub, not the resource. So we are the ones who can tell people where to get low cost, orthopedic surgery. We can partner with our veterinary clinics here in town. So that is something that is continuing to change based on the needs of Yolo County. Okay, next slide. And I think this is back to you, Eric.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephanie. So just a very quick wrap up before we take questions and any comments on the presentation is, first, I'd just like to thank Stephanie for her time to come to this group and to really open the door about the conversation about what's going on with animal services and what is needed and what the future might look like. And so I think with all of this in mind, the plan would be, barring any feedback from this group, would be to continue with the strategic plan process with these items in mind, beginning at the next meeting. So that would be the August meeting of this JPA. And then, as is slated on the actual work plan of this JPA that was discussed quite a few months ago, and certainly can be updated by staff, would then be to have a check-in process where each of the respective council members can go back to their councils to check in on how the process has been going with the JPA, the strategic plan processes, as well as the information that we have from animal services. And then keeping in alignment with that work plan and seeing if, depending on how the check-ins with the city councils go, would be the process of beginning an operational plan in fall of 2021, winter 2022. This all certainly could change over the next several months, as we've seen just with getting this group together. Sometimes we have to make adjustments as they come, but I think the plan would be to continue with what the work plan initially established at the beginning of this group, which is part of the establishment of the agreement of the JPA, but just with the information in mind that we've heard from Stephanie today. So with that, I will wrap up the presentation, and at this time we can take any questions for either myself or Stephanie, and then any public comment on this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Stephanie, as well. Is there any comments or questions for staff?
So I don't have to go first, Wade, but I'm happy to. This is Dan.
Go ahead.
So I'm looking at one of the, and by the way, thanks to Eric for providing Myra and myself a great deal of the background materials and the prior studies that have been done, and that's very, very helpful information to pull it all together in one place for us. So thank you, and I appreciate that. And it's definitely going to help me, plug into this process as a newbie. I'm looking at a document that looks like it came out some months ago, and the header on it is Animal Shelter JPA Development Work Plan. And it lists a series of processes that fit, with a classic strategic planning process and the dates attached to those. And it's not just the title, but the specific action steps in it seem to be closely linked to focus on a new shelter. Like step 4 is select shelter location, step 5 is design shelter, etc. It's sounding like this is a very different message and approach that where what I heard Stephanie say was a shelter would be great, and in the longer term, an important thing to try to get, but that there are these interim needs that you want to focus on. Will this work plan that first of all, is the document I'm looking at an effective working document, or has it been superseded and I'm looking at something old? Because this doesn't quite fit with the message we just heard.
Sure. So thank you for the question, council member. And I think that this is a shifting process. I do believe that work plan in general, I think, is a helpful document, but I do think that some of the dates certainly would need to be updated. And I know that staff has taken a look at that and wanted to have this initial discussion before, putting anything to paper, but I think it is a living document. And then second, I think, is that part of this process really has been diving into what are the needs and doing somewhat of a needs assessment of what is here and now that is needed to be accomplished, and then what is needed in the future. And so I think I'd certainly say that part of the purpose of this JPA, in my understanding, is to look forward in animal services and to plan for that. But I think that part of it is alignment with the actual animal services that are being provided currently. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think in short, it is a living document that certainly could be revised and changed depending on the direction of this group.
So the other related question, and from your history and engagement in this, I think you'll be able to easily tell me whether this question makes sense or perhaps it doesn't make any sense at all. And that is, with a lot of the early discussion of focus on a new facility, do you think, for example, West Sacramento and UC Davis would be more interested in being full partners in this JPA process with this new focus that you're talking about? Or is that, you think, not likely?
So I will not speak for them. I do know that Aaron Laurel, the city manager for the city of West Sacramento, is on the line. I believe Matt Dulcich is not with us today from UC Davis. I believe that would be a slightly different conversation than what was had previously, but staff would certainly be open to opening that conversation if we were discussing a different outcome, such as looking at a shelter versus interim needs. So.
Okay. I mean, I'm thinking that there, as Stephanie explained, there have been a lot of significant changes in focus. I am very encouraged by the efforts you're making to fix it first and to address some needs that, as you say, would allow you to stop wasting staff time on certain problems and be able to redirect those things towards, improving services. So I think I really appreciate that you're taking a fresh look at these things in this time. It does make me wonder if it's worth taking just a brief hiatus before we start the strategic planning process to try to understand whether any of these funding sources that we're talking about are tools we have to use, to see if there are our partner parties are interested in engaging with us. For example, I'd love to have a meeting in which we talk with the UCD vet school folks who will be putting this grant program together, and to understand what things they would be looking for beyond the language in the trailer bill that might help inform the focus we take. And I'm not suggesting we put this on the shelf for a year. I'm suggesting maybe a month or two to explore the money issues and the partnership opportunities, and then proceed. Because if there are others who want to really become full-fledged partners with us in this process, then it would be very important for them to be full voice partners in that strategic planning process. But I'm not reaching any conclusions here. I'm just asking a question.
Certainly. And I believe Aaron Laurel can respond quickly for the city of West Sacramento.
Sure. Thanks, Eric, and appreciate that question. Wasn't planning to say anything today. We have been participating in the meetings, and as one of the partners in terms of those of the jurisdictions that receive services from county animal services, we definitely want to stay engaged. Just to directly respond, I don't want to, of course, get ahead of my counsel or speak for them, but definitely throughout this process, our number one concern has been the cost of particularly a new facility, and also taking the opportunity as this analysis was happening to assess for West Sacramento what is our best option going forward. As you all know, we do have some different geography here, and being really close to Sacramento and in the Front Street shelter, we were very upfront about us, at least exploring that option to partner with Sacramento. All that was pre-COVID, and frankly, we can't say today that there's any, sure path to making something work there. So I think as we're looking at the option to more or less kind of remodel, revamp the current shelter, what that might look like, I think is definitely very interesting because it should be a more cost-effective option, putting aside all the objectives of what a new shelter would entail. But that's definitely something we want to be engaged in if that's the direction we're headed. And that's something I would love to follow up with the staff at the county to learn more about how the thinking has evolved. But absolutely, I think our council would be interested in exploring that, and perhaps also as a more active partner as a member of the JPA. But that's something I'll have to vet with our council, of course, probably in a future workshop. So I hopefully that answers the question directly. And the other part of it that I'll just mention, that I think as we look at animal services as a whole, especially for West Sacramento, one of the things we're trying to look at is both from a facility standpoint for the center, but also for who's actually providing the animal control services. And that's something that we're still exploring in terms of, and I know this group is too, in terms of does it make sense to have it continue to be the sheriff's office, or in our case, does it make sense to do something more local? So that's the other component of it. So hopefully that helps.
Eric, just one other question or comment about how we proceed next, which is the issue on the table. And by the way, I appreciate that information we just received too. In hearing the presentation about sort of the reinvention of this area, some of those functions sound like they're not traditional animal control services that we've contracted for, and I think that's what you were telling us. But are some of them appropriately in the realm of SPCA and other nonprofit or volunteer groups? And of course, there's more than one way to get there. They can be volunteers for your agency. They could be partners with you in subcontractors, or just plain partners who are helping to raise money even for you. Where do the nonprofit partners fit in the new thinking that's that's evolving here?
I would defer that to Stephanie.
So as far as we have, well, the nonprofit that we work actively with it's the Friends of YCAS. And they are the ones who have, like I said, they have the grant money. So raising funds for some certain medical, they do help offset some of our medical cases that are, our special cases that we try to raise money for on these, it's not the everyday case, but they also will provide, they'll buy supplies for us. They've been really active with us. We also work with a lot of nonprofits for our rescue component. So that's where we work with YOLO SPCA, Orphan Kitten Project. We rely on those partners. So we are, like I said, we're the hub, and we have so many of them. So I don't know if that answers your question as far as how we work with them, but absolutely. So they are the ones for wildlife. We work with the Wildlife Care Center. We have local someone in West Sacramento who we transport the injured and the young wildlife to. So it just it is a matter. We're open to partnering with everyone with that. And SPCA used to do spay neuter clinics, and Kim Kinney just reached out to me last week to see how we could get the weekend clinics going as well again. And that is just a staffing issue as far as finding veterinarians and RVTs, which there's a shortage of in the state of California, and trying to get the big fixed rig that I have up and running on the weekends, because that absolutely is something that is a priority and I'd like to see happen. I just can't staff it right now. And that's like I said, across California, there's a shortage of shelter, RVTs, and veterinarians. Yeah, so our nonprofit helped, their fundraiser, we need a new forklift. So that's another piece of it too. So I don't know if that answers that part of the question.
Well, I guess my question really Stephanie gets to, and I think you partly get there. You've got a new structure that you're envisioning here. Are there any items that you have included in the structure as being part of your animal control agency that might appropriately be the responsibility of a nonprofit who partners with us?
It's a really good question. So it's something that I'd like to look, really break down our day-to-day, but as far as, rabies control and those things would need to be handled appropriately by our staff. I don't know if any other nonprofit could handle it. I know there's other agencies that, have a nonprofit who operates the shelter. You have, so I don't know. I guess that's my honest answer. As I'm thinking about this, I would love to have different parts of it. The outreach part, I think, and the community piece that we are lacking really is going to depend on volunteers and nonprofits, and that's something that I think we need to do. And this was obviously pre-COVID that we had already aligned a lot of those ideas. So that's where partnering with a nonprofit who could help us with West Sacramento, because that's something we had started doing, mobile vaccine clinics. So yes, I think that those parts of our services with the community definitely could be handled, if not just partnered with a group.
So I've just hit you with a bunch of questions off the cuff in response to information that I first heard half an hour ago. So I've got to think about it and digest it. I would say I'm really appreciative of you taking a fresh look at this. I think there are some creative and practical ideas that you're already accomplishing. And so I don't feel too strongly that, gee, we can't do any next step in the strategic planning process at all at this time, but I definitely would want, if there are other partners who would be interested in coming to the table and being a part of this, I also would want them to, in one way or another, have a chance to participate in that strategic planning. So anyway, I've said enough up to my colleagues and staff to provide guidance on, what do they think should happen next? But I'm very open to listening to that.
Thank you for those comments, Dan. And I want to say I completely agree with what you're saying. It's something that we've talked about more than once since we started this whole process, a year and a half or 2 years ago, whatever it was quite a while back. The importance of not only the nonprofits, but the private sector in general, that if we're ultimately able to have a new shelter, new facility, it's not going to happen without the nonprofits and the private sector. So I totally agree with that. And I think it's very important. I know Lisa Gaines has been there from day one of this group. And I know she was, I don't know if she still is, but she was on the call and has always been a big part of this group and very knowledgeable on what the nonprofits can and can't do. And I feel real strongly that we definitely need to keep them engaged and involved, because I just don't think it's doable without them. And I've always felt strongly that, we want to keep them with a seat at the table for sure. Is there any other comments or questions for staff? Or any public comment?
I do show that Lisa Gaines does have her hand raised.
Okay. Lisa, welcome back.
Thanks very much. Stephanie, thank you for your presentation. I feel very strongly and have talked about this. I do not think it is all government responsibility to pay for this. UTP has agreed to raise, I think at one point it was 5% or more of the total cost. That's number one. Dan, I don't know if you were given over 1,000 surveys that we sent out to rescues and other organizations that are involved in this, in the animal welfare community, about what the community players felt the need was. And I'm not sure if you've been privy to that information. I'd be happy to sit with you and share that. But I think that this has to happen with the participation of nonprofits and private funding. It won't happen any other way, I agree. And I think that it's very doable. And we're looking at money outside the immediate area. We have very large partners. I work with UC Davis, I work with Matt. I think they have another focus right now in terms of building a new hospital, in terms of being at the table, but I can't speak for them. But I feel very strongly that the process should continue in parallel and we should not stop, because this has been going on for 10 years. And I think we can have parallel conversations. Dan, I'd love to talk to you and just provide you with some more information about what other parts of the country are doing, who's running shelters, where money can be saved or used more effectively, and where other services can be leveraged. And anybody else who'd like to share in that information. So I feel really strongly that this process has stopped and started too many times, and stopping doesn't get us anywhere. We can have multiple conversations at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Lisa. I completely agree with you. Is there any other comments, either oral or written?
I don't show any additional hands raised, Chair, and I have no written comments.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, well, in regards to some of what Lisa said, yeah, I completely agree with the start and stop thing. This is before COVID, I really felt like this group was getting some traction and starting to make some headway. And I know COVID kind of set us back a little bit, but I'd really like to see this get back on track and move forward and get something accomplished here. Because like Lisa said, it's been going on for a long time, and we definitely need the private sector and the nonprofits involved as well. With that, I think we've concluded our agenda, and if there's no further comments, we can adjourn the meeting at 3:05.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Have a good
Bye.
day.